Last lesson for today, and it's going to be cube roots, and it's a good thing it's the last lesson because my baby just woke up, so I'm going to need to go grab him. Hopefully you don't hear him screaming in this. I'll go quick. Alright, so cube roots. Last video we were talking about square roots, which is just figuring out what the root number is if some number has been squared. In this case, cube roots are just finding out the root number if a number has been cubed. So let's look at 3 cubed. Do you know what 3 cubed equals? Well, it might take a little bit of math to figure out. We have to do 3 times 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 equals 9. And 9 times 3 equals, as we bring this one down here, that's supposed to be a 3. 9 times 3 equals 27. So 3 cubed equals 27. So if we were to try and find the cubed root of 27, we would write it like this. We have a little cubed, little 3 that indicates that this is a cubed number, and then we would have 27 inside. So very similar to the square root sign right there, but this little 3 indicates that this number has been cubed. It has been multiplied by the same number 3 times in order to figure out what this center number was. And as we just discovered, the cubed root of 27 equals 3. That's the base number that multiplied 3 times equaled 27. But we can do this with a lot of different numbers. And we're not as familiar just off the top of our heads usually with cubed roots because we did a lot of like 2 times 2 equals 4 and 6 times 6 equals 36, but we didn't go much further than that in our multiplication table. So this might take a little extra work to figure out some of these cubed roots, but I believe in you. Alright, so here's another problem. The cubed root of 125. Any idea what the cubed root of 125 is? Now some people might know this off of the top of their heads as 5, but for those of you who don't have that magical ability to know it off the top of your head, let's break it down. One way we can solve cubed root fairly easily is if we write 125 at the top. We want to find all the factors of 125 to see what it's made up of and see if we can find any common factors that if we multiplied those 3 times, we would get 125. So 125 is a combination of 5 times 25. 5 times 25 equals 125, so we've broken that down into 2 factors. We could break 25 down even further. 25 is a result of 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125. Looks like we're getting an answer here. If we did 5 times 5 times 5, our answer would be 125. Therefore, the cubed root of 125 equals 5. Fairly simple still. We could have done the same factor tree with the number 27 if we wanted to. I won't make you suffer through that here, but let's do another one that maybe would be a little less obvious. What is the cubed root of 216? Any idea there? I didn't know this one off the top of my head, so if you did, you are currently more brain smart than I am. But let's do a factor tree for this one so we can figure this out. 216. What are the factors of 216? Well, because it is an even number, we know it can be divided by 2. So let's start there. If we take out 2, we factor out 2, then 2 times what equals 216? Well, let's just divide this in half and then we'll know. So 216 divided in half of 16 is 8, so we know it's going to end in 8, and half of 200 is 100. So 108. 108 times 2 would equal 216, but we can go even further. This 108 can be broken down. And once again, it's an even number, so we know we can take out another 2. So let's do that. Alright, so 2 times 108. Well, half of 8 is 4, and half of 100 is 50, so 54. So we have 2 2's, but we all know that 2 times 2 times 2 is not big enough to be 216, so I wonder how this is going to break down. Anyway, let's go 54. 54, once again, is an even number, so if we take out 2, what is half of 54? Well, half of 50 is 25, and half of 4 is 2, so that would give us 27. So now we have 3 2's, but we're still not done. We'd have to multiply 2 times 2 times 2 times 27 in order to get 216, so let's keep going. 27. Let's break it down. 27 is 3 times 9. That's supposed to be a 9. And then we know that 9 is 3 times 3. So now we have 3 times 3 times 3 times 2 times 2 times 2. It doesn't seem like this could be a cubed root of anything, but let's look at it a different way. If we have 2 times 3, we have 6. And if we have 2 times 3, we have 6. And if we have 2 times 3, we have another 6. So if we do 6 times 6 times 6, we will get the answer 216. So the cubed root of 216 is 6. Alright, hopefully you followed along pretty well there. You could do this with literally any number. Not every number has a super nice cubed root, but you could get into decimals and stuff. But the majority of the ones you'll be working on in this book should have very nice cubed roots. So go through the worksheet. Oh, and one other thing they want you to know and be familiar with is what happens when you have if you square a negative number. They want to know what happens if you square a negative number. So let's say you have negative 4 squared. What happens there? Well, negative 4 times negative 4. Remember back to our initial lessons, a negative times a negative equals a positive. So that means we're left with positive 16. And then, of course, if we square just 4, 4 squared is just 4 times 4. So that is also 16. So no matter what you do, if you square a negative number or square a positive number, the answer will always be positive. So when we are square rooting something, let's say we have the square root of 16, how are we supposed to know if it is a positive number or a negative number that originally made this a 16? The truth is we can't know. Once it's become squared, we don't know if it started out as a negative 4 or a positive 4. But we can get around that by saying that the answer is, if we took the square root of positive 16, then our answer could be positive or negative 4. We don't know for sure which one it was, but it could be either of those, and so we could write the answer as positive or negative 4, written in this positive over the negative, and that would be an answer to show us it could be a negative number. We don't know for sure, so we're just going to put them both in there. What if you did the square root of negative 64? Now, does that work? Well, is there any number that you can multiply it by itself and get a negative number? If you were to try and multiply negative 8 times 8, you would get negative 64, but negative 8 and 8 are not the same number. They are different numbers, therefore they're not squared. That would not be considered squaring. So there is no way to square a number and get a negative number. Therefore this number does not exist. You will never have a negative 64 square root of any negative that will give you an actual number. That number does not exist. You can have negative numbers in your cubed root sign, though, and this is very important. So squared doesn't work. You can never square anything and get negative, but a cubed root you can, because let's do a little cubing. Let's say we have negative 5 cubed, right? And that's, which equals, negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5. Well, let's solve this problem. Negative 5 times negative 5, negative times negative is a positive, so positive 25. That's a 2. There you go. But then we multiply that again by a negative, so that's times negative 5, and a negative times a positive is a negative. So that equals negative 125. So you can see a cubed root written with negative 125, which would indicate that our initial number was a negative 5 that was multiplied by itself. So it works for cubed roots, as you can see from positive and negative multiplication, but never for square roots. You will never have a square root with a negative number that produces an actual number. Alright, hopefully that makes sense. Have fun working on the worksheet. I'll see you in